Government has threatened to bring it down if the Prime Minister agrees to the latest peace deal offer. The Finance Minister, Bezalel Smotrich, and the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, have said that they were opposed to striking any deal unless Hamas was wiped out. And last night in Tel Aviv, tens of thousands of people gathered to urge the Prime Minister to accept the ceasefire proposal, which was unveiled by the US President Joe Biden. Groups of protesters were dispersed by mounted police and by water cannon. So let's discuss this proposed deal.
Excuse me. Nothing can save them now. I mean, let's just be honest, right? You know, what can save Israel? The government is about to collapse. The wolves are at the gate. So Joe Biden, in a last-ditch effort, tries to save Israel as Israel spirals into a civil war and into a war with the Arab world. The Egyptians are ready to attack them for killing 2 Egyptian soldiers and invading and violating the peace agreement on the Egyptian border. See, they out of control. You know, it's the same thing happened with Hitler, right? The same thing happening with the Israelis is the same thing that happened with Hitler. A group of white Nazi, fascist, racist, terrorists, right? That goes off script and gets totally out of control. That was the same thing Hitler did when you had the civil war between the Zion Nazis in Germany and the Anglo-Christian Nazis in Germany, Hitler and the Jews, right? When they went after them for doing the same thing that AIPAC is doing in the United States. And that's what happened with World War II in a nutshell. The reason why Hitler attacked, you have a group of, it was basically religion and power, right? Same thing with the Civil War. And so where you have a group of, Hitler attacked the Anglo-Christian, Anglo-Saxon Christian Caucasoids, right? Attacked the Zion-Nazi Jewish Caucasoids in Germany, right? Because they were doing the same thing AIPAC is doing in the United States right now, trying to consolidate power over the governments and over business. And so they revolted against them, and it ended badly for them. Well, not really. I mean, they still got what they wanted. It just took them a little longer. And so now the Zion Nazis, right? The Jewish Zion Nazi branch is that the British and Americans and Europe helped build a Nazi battering ram in Israel against the Arabs and blacks in Africa, because Israel is on the border of Africa. It's really it was considered part of Africa until, recent history. And so they're getting out of control. Right? It's getting out of control. So as you can see, there's a civil war about to take place in Israel, as it is in the United States. Right? And so, but right now it's ignited in Israel. A civil war is breaking out within the government and the people, where you have 100,000 people in the streets, and they're using their security forces to suppress the protests. And the government is about to collapse. Why? The Israelis have a hardcore Nazi right-wing government who only, is out of control, just like Hitler. And so what's happening is the Amero-Nazi is trying to step in and save them. The Euro-Nazi and the Amer-Nazi is stepping in to try to save the Zion-Nazi. You see? And it's going to fail. It's too late. Joe Biden can't save the Amer-Nazi. They're going to fall right after. Well, they may fall beforehand, right? Before the situation in Israel gets resolved, the Americans may fall. the American NATO, the U.S. NATO alliance may be totally decimated by Russia. This is World War III. Just because you're sitting in Baltimore or Birmingham or Denver or Los Angeles and no missiles have struck your house, do not be, fooled. This is World War III. There is no going back now. Why? I mean, you just saw it. You just saw why. The hardcore Nazis in control of the Israeli government said, fuck Joe Biden. We're going to do what we want to do. We're going to spark a war with Egypt. We're going to spark a war with Syria. We're going to spark the war with Lebanon. We're going to spark the war with Palestine, right? We're going to spark the war with Iran eventually. And Joe Biden can't stop us. And what did the insane Zion Nazis now they're even more insane than Netanyahu. They told him, we will topple your government and then we'll reform the government into a harder, more Nazi right-wing government and then we're gonna just do what we want. Either way you fuck, because the ones at the top of the government is worse than Benjamin. You would think, you say, how can you get worse than Benjamin Netanyahu? Is that possible? Yes. Yes. He's considered moderate. As far as the government, he's considered a moderate compared to the people trying to topple him. They're not trying to topple him so they can bring in kumbaya and peace. They're trying to topple him so they can do what they want and ignore everybody else. And that means they're gonna slaughter the Arab population of Palestine, particularly Gaza, starting with Gaza. So they're worse than even Netanyahu, and that's hard. I mean, how is it hard to be worse than this guy? This guy's a pure maniac. Strikes me as the Antichrist. But the people under him are even worse. So they're trying to topple this guy if he makes a deal. So they said, basically his whole government exists on no deal with Hamas, no deal with Arabs, right? They want to fight. Let them fight. You see? Let them fight. But why can't they just back off and let them fight? Because they joined at the hip. This is a Nazi operation that's joined at the hip. Joe Biden he said it. He said, I'm a Zion Nazi. To the core. You see, he's been bought and paid for by Satan. The whole U.S. government, is bought and paid for by the devil, Satan. They're over there signing bombs to kill thousands of children, saying how much they love Israel. They love an apartheid state that's committing a genocide. What does that say about them? If you say, I love an apartheid state, right, that supports genocide against an indigenous Arab population, what does that say about you? It's blaringly obvious, right? Like a Negro in the United States that would say, I love a white, Nazi, racist, fascist, apartheid state that genocides indigenous people. You had to look at these Negroes and your head turn around backwards. Like, are you crazy? What is wrong with you? You see? People, they sold their soul to the devil in America. They sold their soul to Satan, the Antichrist. Nothing but Nazis at all. It's like a rainbow Nazi coalition in America. A bunch of degenerates and weirdos and Nazis, right? America leads to bussy and Nazis. I've said it before. And I've been proven to be correct every time. Because it just gets worse and worse. And they show themselves for who they are. It's not like you just, besmirching them, right? It's just who they are. They're gonna lose. They're gonna fucking lose. They're gonna spark this war and it's gonna expand. But the Americans may not survive, may be out of it and Israel going to fall. Because what's going to happen, it looks like it's going to happen is Europe and America is about to get devastated by Russia. And once America and Europe, he's going to strike London, France, and then he's basically going to strike London and France and step back and say, y'all want some of this work? Y'all can back out now. And if they flinch and they institute Article 5, then he's just going to nuke the United States. And they say, well, this guy's bluffing. He's not bluffing. You will see Europe get nuked probably within the next 2 months. And he's going to step back like, I did work. Y'all want some of this work? United States, Joe Biden, you want some of this work? You want to get in this, or you want to back off? You see? So they got their hands is full. Vladimir Putin is going to nuke London. He's going to nuke France. Who has the nukes? Who's controlling the nukes in the UK? Oh, that would be the United States. So he's going to nuke the U.S. base in probably London, and some facilities in London in that area, just to show that he means business. And then he's going to nuke Paris, France, the military, bases out there. Don't you think he knows where they are? He has satellites that can destroy the whole United States arsenal of satellites. They have shut down Elon Musk's satellite system in Ukraine. They have the ability to block those satellites. And he has satellites in space that are armed with missiles that are following the U.S. satellites around. He has killer satellites. No lie, I'm not making this up. So it's almost over with. They'll wipe your satellite systems, right? And then once they wipe the satellite systems, then he's going to nuke the United States after that. So he's going to nuke London. The UK is going to get nuked. The US bases that are controlling the nukes. They just flew a nuclear armed B-52 over a part of Russia a couple of days ago. So he's ready to go. Now the trigger for that is probably when they move nukes into, I think, Poland or Sweden or one of them. Between that, and some other things, they're gonna probably launch strikes in Belgorod. They're striking Belgorod right now, which is inside of Russia. So when they start, doing more strikes with American weapons and the F-16s, they get them X-16s to try to fly, near Russia, and that can launch, missiles into Russia, and they can be armed with nukes. Then it's go time for the Russians. They're gonna destroy parts of London, parts of the United Kingdom, England, and they're gonna, parts of France, and possibly Germany, and another part, and maybe Poland or Sweden or one of those countries. And then he's gonna step back and say, what do you guys want to do? You want to keep this going? And if they blink, he's gonna nuke the United States. If they blink, if they don't say, listen, we out of it, we stand down, do what you got to do. If they say anything other than that, and he's not gonna wait, because he has first strike capabilities with hypersonics. If the Americans blink and don't immediately surrender and say, listen, we don't want no parts of that shit. Texas, Colorado, New York, Washington, D.C., Florida, and Los Angeles, say bye-bye. In any of the surrounding areas. That means Baltimore, right? Possibly parts of parts of New York. parts of Virginia. He's gonna hit them immediately. When they don't say, listen, they don't cry uncle and say, listen, we not in it. My name Bennett. We ain't in it. Do what you gotta do. We don't want none of this shit. The minute that they don't say that and they say something like Article 5 and talk shit, all of those cities are gonna be toast within minutes, within like an hour. Because he'll nuke them. He's gonna nuke those places in England, and then he's gonna put out a message, and they got about an hour to accept it. If they say anything other than, if they say some shit like, this invokes Article 5, or you know what the next thing you're gonna hear? Boom, 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 boom. That's the end of it. So, and then America's finished after that. There is no more America. There won't be no more America. You see? It's time to pay the piper now. And they definitely, at that point, they're gonna break off from the Israelis and say, well, fuck it, we done. There's no way, you know what I mean, they just took out, you know, our capacities in Europe, and they hammering Europe with tactical nukes. We gotta leave that alone. We don't want to lose the cities. But more than likely, my bet is, my prediction is, they're gonna invoke Article 5. They're gonna say, they're gonna talk shit. Article 5, blah, 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 we're gonna back up Europe. And as soon as they say that, that's it. If they take too long to respond to the Russians, they're gonna hit them with hypersonic tactical nukes. They're gonna get a short time to respond to the Russians. So if you wanna know what's gonna happen, just watch Europe. When they strike Europe, then they're gonna, you know, step back and watch the American response. If the Americans cry Article 5, then kiss your ass goodbye. If you're in certain states and cities, possibly anywhere near, in and around Texas, probably in and around the Houston areas, probably Colorado, Denver, Washington D.C., New York, Los Angeles, out that way. Possibly Washington State, Chicago. These places are gonna get hit and devastated. At that point, there is no more America, as you know it. The world is over as you know it, and the new world order has now arrived. Right? And if they go back and forth, it's just gonna get worse and worse. And at that point, Israel is finished, because America won't have the capacity. If they then hit the United States, which they will, then they don't have the capacity to back up. They're gonna have to pull the troops out, because all hell is gonna break loose in America. The economy is gonna collapse. I mean, nobody's going to work with missiles dropping in New York and different places. So the economy will instantly collapse in the United States. Whatever you don't have, for a long time, you won't have. There'll be food riots, etc., right? You name it. The food, water, all that shit gonna dry up. That's why Mark Zuckerberg is building a bunker, because his people have already gamed it out and told him what's gonna happen. I'm just off the top of the dome. I study this shit. I already know what's gonna happen if it goes down that path. And so Israel is finished, and we're on the brink of that. So America won't be able to help Israel. And what's gonna happen? The wolves are gonna come in, backed by the Russians and the Chinese. The wolves are gonna come in and finish off Israel. They dead men walking in Israel. That whole place gonna get wiped. They're gonna be running for their fucking life. Trust. They're gonna have, and they may set off nukes down there. They may start nuking shit in that area, the Israelis. At that point, right before that, they may nuke Iran, and then all hell breaks loose down there. They can't be stopped. Joe Biden can't stop them. It's only the war gonna stop the Israelis, and they gonna get wiped, because they wouldn't cut a deal when they could. They wouldn't stop when they could. So when the people, when they come in this time, once the Americans are gone, it's nothing that can save them. They're gonna get annihilated and eviscerated, and what they were doing to the Palestinians is gonna be done to them. The people, they're gonna bomb them mercilessly. It won't be no. It'll just be Palestine when they finish. But then they may nuke the whole area. Who knows? I mean, they're maniacs. They're terrorist maniacs. So they may possibly nuke the whole area anyway. Right? And the Russians may get in it to try to stop them. Like the Russians and the Chinese may jump in to try to stop them. But they're finished. Right? They're finished. Joe Biden can't save them. It's over. They can barely save themselves from what's coming. The writing is on the fucking wall. Right? They're gonna, and so once that happens, like I said, the Arabs, the Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, you name it, it's gonna be a free for all. They all gonna pour into Israel, and they're gonna wipe out the Israelis. There will be, when this is over with, you're talking 2024, 2025, I don't know what's going to be in the aftermath of these nuclear strikes. I mean, we may go Mad Max. But one thing I do know, Israel will no longer exist. Most of those people will be gone. They'll be back in Europe or America or wherever they're from. Or Poland, Russia. They'll be getting the fuck out of there so fast, it's going to empty out. Like somebody set off a firebomb in a movie theater. That place is going to empty out. Because none of the Arabs are going to want them around. Who do you think? You say, well, that's not possible. Well, if the shit hits the fan, who do you think wants to be chilling with them in that area? The Egyptians don't like them. All those white Zion Nazis over there. The Egyptians don't like them. The Syrians don't like them. The Palestinians definitely don't like them. The Lebanese hate them. Everybody hates them for what they've done since 1948. They're going to have to evacuate that base. And that's what Israel is. Israel is a fucking Nazi base in the Middle East and North Africa. That's all it is. Cut the bullshit out. It's just a white supremacist, racist, fascist, Nazi base. They're going to empty that base out as quick as they can. Either that or they're going to be killed. There will be no state of Israel, whatever you want to fake. Whatever fake bullshit name you want to put on this bullshit. It's going to be a piece of flaming hot shit. None of them people are going to want to live with them after what they've done. So they're going to wipe their asses out. There will be no more Israel. This is the end of the Israelis. This is probably the end of the Americans as well. At least it's going to be the end of America as you know it. Because once the missiles strike America, will be no. They have shit like COG, the continuity of government. That shit is gonna fall apart. You got motherfuckers coming across the border. And once Europe and America gets destabilized, everywhere will collapse. Because why? Everybody is eating off of the devil's plate, right? Everybody's eating the devil's pie. So the money that America is giving to Israel and giving to Egypt and giving to Africans and giving to South Americans, that money is going to get cut off instantly. So South America, all that shit, these economies are going to collapse just like a COVID lockdown. It's going to be worse than, if you think, whatever it was in COVID, what do you think it's going to be like, when you got all-out nuclear war? And in the aftermath of that, you think America is going to be sending financial aid to Israel or Egypt or South America? No, they ain't going to be able to. That shit going to collapse immediately. So anything in those areas that's getting financial support from the Americans, for whatever reason, is going to be cut off within days. So those economies, that's going to cause huge gaps in people that's taking money from the Americans. Not to mention the doing business with them, the supply line is going to collapse. So obviously they're going to collapse, just like COVID. Everything's going to get cut off. It's going to be worse than COVID. You have to understand like what's happening. And he said, "Oh, you're a Debbie Downer." I'm just telling you the truth. You can accept it or not. Right? There is no way out. These people have sealed your fate. You might as well get ready for it. Because your fate is hitched to theirs. Like me, my fate is hitched to these people, whether I like it or not. Which I don't. But my fate is hitched to them. I can't control what they do. No one cares. So, and people were warned to try to, stop them through, voting or whatever. But you can see what's happening in Israel. That voting doesn't mean anything. People said, "I don't like Donald Trump. I'm gonna vote for Joe Biden," and it got worse. Now you in the middle of World War III. He's pouring gasoline on World War III. But you worried about Donald Trump? I mean, it's all dumb. It's all bullshit. I mean, he would have done the same thing. Maybe a little slower, but it would have been the same result. He would have poured gas, because he's been pouring gas on that Israel shit since he got into politics. So the same thing happened on October 7th, would have still happened under Donald Trump. There's nothing he could have done. He talked tough, but he's a clown. There's nothing he could have done. Now maybe he would have slowed down the situation in Europe with the Russians, by not really backing NATO. But they probably still would have they would have probably still did what they wanted to do anyway. Whether the U.S. backed them or not. So it would have been the same result. So voting doesn't matter. So, not to make this too long, but there's no way out. Israel can't be saved now. And America probably can't be saved either. Because they're pushing the line with these Russians, and this is their bet. Their bet is Russians are bluffing. They will never strike outside of Ukraine. That's their bet. That's the bet that they've made. I'm wagering they fail. They lose that bet. That my money is on, maybe I'm too optimistic, but my money is they lose the bet. They said, well, we're betting that the Russians are bluffing. They'll never strike outside of Ukraine. They fear us too much and the destruction and they're very pragmatic. No, they don't want that, but they're gonna defend themselves. And they're gonna strike first. Like if they feel like the Russians, which I don't blame them, if you ever gonna get in a fight, you gotta strike first. Not counter strike. And the Russians, that's what they're gonna do. They figure once they figure it's gonna be a fight and it's gonna be inside of Russia, then they're gonna say fuck it and just strike first. They're not gonna say anything. They may run some drills to warn you, which they're doing right now, but generally they're not gonna say anything. So yeah, so Israel can't be saved. Forget it. It's over with. Now, what comes next, I think is going to be devastating. It's going to devastate people because they have that mindset. They're letting the leadership or telling Americans, oh, they're too scared to do anything. The Russians are bluffing. They're weak. This is what they tell their citizens. The Russians are weak and they're bluffing. And people believe that shit. You should be scared for your life right now. People in America should be protesting like the Israelis. It should be 100,000, wild protesters in the street. Not because of Palestine, but because you don't want to die and and missile strikes. But they're not. They don't care. They're trying to tell you about climate change and transgenders and all this kind of shit. And feminism. And I'm an independent woman. You don't tell me what to do. I sell vagina on Instagram and on Tinder and stuff like that. Nobody tells me what to do. Well, that's good, but now you're not gonna be selling vagina on Instagram and Tinder for money. You're gonna be selling that shit for sandwiches and cans of beans and water. So hopefully you can make the adjustment. You know, so the U.S. dollar is gonna collapse immediately. More than likely, as soon as those strikes take place in Europe, the U.S. dollar is going to tank and collapse. The housing market is going to collapse. The stock market is going to collapse. Everything going to start collapsing. So, be prepared for that. Silver prices are going to skyrocket. Gold prices are going to skyrocket. These are things you can watch to tell what's going to happen. Food prices are going to skyrocket even higher than they have. The scarcity, look at the cocoa, look at the chocolate market. Chocolate went from $3,000 to $12,000 in 8 months. What do you think will happen to food prices once, the strikes go off in Europe? They're going to skyrocket. And right now, oil and gas and food are being subsidized in the United States. They're subsidizing and keeping the prices from going up. And then the prices on things that they want to go up, like housing and stocks, they're inflating those things. There's no market discovery. The whole system is unbalanced. When the strikes go off, the whole system will come into balance. And it's going to be fucking a nightmare. The dollar's going to collapse in reference to, real assets, food, all these things. They're going to skyrocket. You're going to see hyperinflation in these products. So, yeah, prepare for that. Don't believe the hype. Like Public Enemy said. A lot of, especially the Negro, they believe the hype. They into arguing about a bunch of dumb shit. The Negro in America is insane. So the only way to save them is if America get destroyed. You see? The Negro is insane. Negroes in Africa bleaching their skin. People are insane. So the only cure is you have to destroy that shit. You have to destroy the disease, not necessarily the symptom, but the disease itself. Once the disease is destroyed, then you can repair the people. Right now, there's no hope for them because the disease is metastasizing and spreading. Once it gets destroyed, then there's a chance to recover from the disease. So, but yeah, it's over for Israel. It's just it's a matter of how fast. There may be a peace deal, but it'll be temporary. Like they may get they may not a peace deal, but you may get like a temporary ceasefire or whatever, and then that's gonna collapse, and then it's gonna spiral after that. You're gonna have civil war in Israel they got a civil war in Israel basically, and then it's gonna be all out war. And like I said, the Russians are gonna strike Europe. So this thing is going down. There's no saving it, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's all I got.